My name is Ryan Pemberton. I'm a writer with the magazine Christianity Today. I'm very excited to be joining you today, Mr. Sheen.
Oh, please call me Martin. Ryan, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Martin. I had the pleasure of watching the movie last night, 12 Mighty Orphans, and wanted to thank you for your work and also for the work of your entire career. I've really appreciated your depictions on screen of a committed and nuanced faith. And so I
Oh,
want to thank you for that work.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to this particular film, it seems like one of the major themes is hope, and hope in the face of desperate conditions.
Hmm.
We're seeing the Great Depression. We're seeing children who have been abandoned to a system that was in many ways failing them. But your character, Doc Hall, seems to radiate hope, hope for a better future for these children. And one of the questions that I was wanting to ask you is, can you speak about the importance of an active hope versus, say, a merely passive optimism? And both in this film and also your own story, how do you imagine active hope?
Well, it's a constant projected energy that I can't imagine myself without. I just uh, have always been a hopeful, optimistic person. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a very loving, huge family. You know, both of my parents were immigrants, and they were practicing Catholics. So we were all raised Catholics. There were 10 of us. My
Mhm.
mother actually had 12 pregnancies, 10 survived. There were 9 boys, 1 girl. I was the seventh son. We all had to pitch in from a very early age. My older brothers were caddying at a private club in Ohio, and I was 9 years old. And they said, "Well, it's time for you to pitch in." And so I started caddying, and early spring till late fall every year until I left home in 1959. I caddied and uh, and tried to help. Lessen the burden, the financial burden that my father and mother had to carry. My dad was a factory worker at NCR
Okay.
most of his life, so it was very tight. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. I learned that we serve ourselves best when we serve others first, and that was just the fundamental motto of the family, and that's basic to community. And I think that works on every conceivable level, whether it's on a sports team or in a family or in government or in any kind of public service. I think that you have to have a sense of service, and you can't really have a sense of service without a sense of hope.
Mm.
And so they go hand in hand. Most of my life, I have struggled to use a phrase, to unite the will of the spirit to the work of the flesh, and there
Mm.
you are whole. And I think everybody would agree with that, although they may not articulate it in the same way. I think
Sure.
we have to find a way to feel whole and human, and
Yes.
always be in touch with our humanity.
Yes.
And when we are on that level, it we project hope.
Yes.
I think you can see in people when they are I don't even know the term for not being hopeful. I don't want to say despair, but or helpless or hopeless. But
Yeah.
because I think as long as people are alive, they are hopeful.
Mm.
They are. I think that we cast our lot into the future
Yeah.
when we think about tomorrow.
Yes.
And you got to have hope if you're thinking about tomorrow and you're planning on it. Although
Absolutely.
you don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Well, again, I have appreciated your activism and your proactive work in this way for so many challenging issues that are facing us today. And I was thinking about that during one line that came up in this film as I was watching it last night. In this very moving scene, one of the Mighty Orphans players is told this: without hope, fear and anger will continue to dominate through violence. And I just found that to be such a prescient word for our own time in our own day. And so the question I wanted to ask you is, How do you feel about the potential to rally Americans behind our own urgent issues for a hopeful future?
Yeah, I think
Given our
yeah,
political and ideological
yeah,
schisms and repeated violence.
yeah. I think we have to come to grips with the lie, the deep lie in the throat. I don't think there's anything more urgent as a nation we have to do than to clear our throats of this horrible lie. And those who perpetrate it are committing a colossal sin of usage. And most innocent people who have fallen for this lie are victims of
Yes.
this sense of fear and
Yes.
anger and violence. It is violent to lie. It is violent to bully people. It is violent to rob them of compassion and love, basically. If you get on an airplane and you find out that the pilot has voted for Trump, uh, and you're in mid-flight, are you going to stop having faith in him? We have to get rid of all of this 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 false image. Let's be even and direct. This one individual and the people around him created the lie that is stuck in our throat, in our conscience. And we have to be man enough to face up to it and confess it and identify it that this is what is destroying us. It is a lie. It is not the truth. This man is only concerned about one individual, and that's him and his fortune. And that is, he projected that with a colossal disaster of an administration. He brought out the worst in us and he perpetrated this lie. He has to be manly enough to step out and say, I made a huge mistake before God and country. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah. So truth telling is the response I hear for you. Truth telling in
Either
response to
either
fear.
we tell the truth or we live a lie, and
Yes.
and it's killing us. It's
Yeah.
destroying our spirit. It's so
Absolutely.
un-American.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's so
Well,
destructive.
I so appreciate your candor and in response to that question. I had one more question that I was hoping I could ask, and knowing our audience, Christianity Today's readers, who will be really interested in your own Christian faith and its importance to the work that you're still doing today. Going back to the start of your career, I have read that Terrence Malick influenced your faith in important ways. Can you share a little bit about what that impact was and how it has stayed with you till today?
Very much so. Terry is an old and dear friend. We came together on a film called Badlands in
Right.
1972, which was released in 74, and we remained friends. And we kind of lost track of each other. And in 1981, I was in Paris doing a film, and we ran into each other.
Hmm.
And for the next few months, because my family wasn't able to join me at that time, I spent every available moment with him, and he became like a mentor. I've talked about this in a book I wrote with my son Emilio called Along the Way, which is a father-son memoir. And I talked about Terry, who saw some need in me, and he began to, without saying so in so many words, he became a mentor, specifically about the road to acknowledging spirituality. And he gave me a number of books to read along the way, and we would discuss things philosophical, and we would go to services on occasion. But the center of it was I had been raised Catholic, and I had pretty much left the faith, not for just negligence more than anything.
Sure.
And he had inspired, he had reignited really this burning desire I had to get healed, to become myself,
Yeah.
and eventually it led me back to Catholicism, and I've remained a Catholic since then. But I wasn't interested in the piety of it. I was interested in the honesty of it. I needed to become my real self, which is what all of us are meant to be.
Yes.
And for me, it was less the religion than it was the spirituality. I felt more comfortable in Catholicism because I love the sacraments.
Yeah.
So confession and the Eucharist and the Mass were of utmost importance to me, and so I reunited with that, and I found myself. And I'm not saying that my life was any easier. On the contrary,
Sure, sure.
but it became so much more uh, uh, bearable. It's not a good word. Life is always bearable, even when it's unbearable. But I mean that I became happy. I loved being alive. I loved being active, and I loved the energy that the focus that my life had taken on. And it was in large measure service to others. As I said, I think earlier, that we serve ourselves best when we serve others first. And I began to do that. And that's where I got the greatest sense of joy and fulfillment. And so that is a projection of hope.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me, Martin, but also for the way that you have stewarded that, both on the screen and off. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Blessings on your time, Martin. All right.
And to you, thank you so much.
Thank
Peace
you.
be with you.
Peace be with you as well. Thank you. Bye.